So after a while, we finally have a brand new 2D classic Sonic game, huh? Took them long enough. So yeah, I don't know what Sega was doing that they put off making a proper successor to Sonic Mania, but we finally did get one with Sonic Superstars, and it's kind of a weird game. The game got announced at this year's Summer's Game Fest and looked pretty intriguing. A new classic Sonic game with a 3D art style, 4-player local multiplayer, and new Emerald powers were interesting parts of the game. Along with that, Sonic's original character designer, Naoto Oshima, got the better half of the divorce and came back to make a new character called Trip the Sungazer. Along with that, the game marks the return of Fang the Hunter, and the game was eventually released on October 17th, 2023. What a terrible time to release. The story, as per usual with classic Sonic games though, was pretty much non-existent. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy all travel to the new North Star Islands to stop Dr. Robotnik from turning the island's local fat fucking animals into badniks, while Fang and Trip are sent to find some poorly made drawing of a dragon apparently. Looks like a fucking cow. This was drawn by Dr. Robotnik in the Trio of Troubleshort. During this adventure though, Trip joins the heroes, but it seems that Eggman managed to free the Black Dragon, and so Super Sonic weakens it so Trip can seal the dragon back where it belongs in the Black Onyx. The story is, again, relatively simple, but honestly, this is horribly conveyed. The game makes you play the main story to unlock Trip's story, then makes you play Trip's story to unlock the last story, but that brings up a few issues. Like, if this takes place after Trip's story, why doesn't anyone besides Trip decide it's a good idea to stop the egg robot running around with Eggman's operations and take down Fang? The story feels like the biggest afterthought in this whole game, and they had the audacity to try to include some subtle lore with the Black Dragon and possible under sun gazers. You can see a mural on the wall in game and in the Trio of Trouble animation with 7 other creatures that heavily resembles Trip's armor, color coded to the 7 Chaos Emeralds. But other than that, there's nothing really here to sink your teeth into. The lore is just nothing but vague hints. I think a story-driven classic Sonic game could be really cool, and it could be something told without voices, but clearly they didn't have the chops here, which is kind of sad considering they even have 2D animated cutscenes that honestly don't look half bad. Yeah, the ones in Origins are much better, let's be real. Apparently Powerhouse didn't work on these. These were done by some in-house Japanese studio or something like that, and they were clearly not given a proper budget. I guess they felt like they paid Powerhouse enough with that Sonic Dream Team and Trio of Trouble animation, but I don't know. These look alright. They're not awful, but they're definitely not good. Let's move on to the part they actually put effort into, the gameplay. And oh baby, they cooked. Classic Sonic games have to get 2 things right to even be considered good in my personal book, and that's accurate physics and control and good level design. And the controls for all 4 playable characters in Sonic Superstars are great. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy all control like their 16-bit counterparts with some slight changes here and there. For one, Sonic only has the drop dash, not once the shield or peel out. Tails now has a manual descent that this sadly removes the ability to drop from flight. Knuckles is pretty much the same, and Amy's drop dash like ability from Origins has been removed, which honestly really caught me off guard at first. Overall though, the characters all control and feel great to play as. So how does the level design fare? It's also pretty damn solid. The classic Sonic tradition of fast momentum based reactionary platforming is still here, but honestly I think it's a lot more brutal than most other classic Sonic games. This might be one of the harder classic Sonic games because the level design can be extremely fucking annoying and cheap at times, mainly with the enemy placements. I felt the same way about Mania looking back, and it doesn't seem anything has really changed here. Some of the gimmicks feel a little frustrating and annoying, but they are fun for the most part in these levels. The level design is fun with some very creative environments to run through that all feel home with the good old 16-bit classic Sonic game. So yeah, it's a good classic Sonic game. What else is there? Well, first thing to talk about are the new Chaos Emerald powers introduced in this game. All 7 Chaos Emeralds have unique powers that give the player unique ways to interact with the levels, but I'm gonna be real, these all kinda feel like an afterthought. All 7 of these power-ups don't really do anything to enhance the platforming. They're more like Kirby power-ups where they're mainly used to find hidden objects or very few secret pathways, nothing to really enhance the gameplay for a Sonic game. In Kirby, that works as it's more of a puzzle platformer, but in Sonic, most of the powers should do anything to help that momentum-based reactionary gameplay. Like at all. Before we talk about the powers themselves though, let's talk about the new special stages in the game, which are kind of whatever. You have to tether to one of these points and swing towards the emerald, and I feel like these are way too easy. Even in the latter half of these stages, the emerald powers are relatively easy to unlock, with the only exception, for my personal opinion, being special stage number 5, but once you learn how to do that one, the only thing making these stages actually difficult is the unresponsive controls. I don't know what it is, but sometimes the character just refuses to tether to the point, and it's extremely frustrating when it doesn't work and you lose because of it. The first emerald power you unlock though is Avatar, allowing clones of yourself to appear and attack enemies and obtain collectibles. It's kind of whatever in levels, but during boss fights it can be quite useful. Bullets allow you to shoot yourself through the air in a fiery dash. It's a fine ability. I will admit it's a little overpowered, allowing you to skip large chunks of level. Vision allows you to seize objects that weren't there beforehand, which is a pretty situational ability. So situational that the game has to tell you when to even use it. Water allows you to scale waterfalls and swim underwater. It's one of the better abilities, but scaling waterfalls is a relatively situational move, and you only ever go over water like once in the entire game, so there was really no point of this. Ivy allows you to make climbable vines, taking you up to areas you couldn't reach. This ability also feels very situational, but also feels useful if I'm playing against Tails, or you should have the bullet ability by now, so now they're just double dipping. Slow allows you to slow down time, an actual genuinely really useful move in this game. And lastly, there's Extra, an ability that gives each character unique ability. Sonic gets the homing attack, Tails gets the tornado spin, which sends out a projectile, Knuckles gets the power punch, which is also a projectile move, Amy gets her hammer throw from Sonic Origins, where she could use it as Hyper Amy, which is also a projectile move. Talk about overlap. Overall, the emerald powers are just kind of underwhelming. They don't enhance the gameplay, they just exist. Sure, for exploration's sake, they might be a little more useful, but as a person who doesn't care to explore classic Sonic games, they're just whatever to me. Of course, when you collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds, you get Super Sonic, which is cool and all, but the best part is you can actually cancel Super Sonic. The worst part is that now they've changed the other characters to not Super Knuckles, Super Tails, or Super Amy, nah. Super powered. That's kind of fucking hilarious. Look, I don't have anything against only certain characters being able to use the Chaos Emerald, like, I don't ever think Super Tails or Super Amy should be a thing, but super powered is absolutely fucking hilarious. You literally just had a game that made Super Amy real, and then you stripped it away from people. That shit is so fucking funny. Another new feature in the main campaign of Sonic Superstars is the local co-op multiplayer. Yeah, Sonic Superstars allows you to play up to 4 players at once, but it's kind of bad. So you know when you hand your younger sibling the controller to play as Tails so they shut the fuck up and stop crying, but playing as Tails always made you get left behind? Think that, but on acid. Sonic Superstars' camera picks whoever it wants to focus on depending on its mood, and since this is a Sonic game, the other player characters get left behind so damn much that the callback button is practically useless. You get come back for 1 second and boom, you're already off the damn screen. And I've only played with one other person, cause who the hell has 4 local friends lying around, let's be real. Am I right? No, who has friends? Yeah. The multiplayer campaign was clearly an afterthought, and it just feels like pure fucking chaos. Sure, it might be fun for a laugh, but as an actual mode, it's so fucking bad. Another constant of classic Sonic games though is boss fights, which while most classic Sonic boss fights are neat ideas at most and terrible at worst, Sonic Superstars has taken the crown for the worst boss in any of these games. In the original games, if a boss was bad, you could at least damage boost through it to get it over with quickly. Sonic Superstars makes you wait and adds extended invincibility frames to the game, making it damn near impossible to actually damage boost, especially since some of these bosses force you to sit, wait for them, stop attacking, and it is the worst way you can make a Sonic boss ever. They're so boring and they're just extremely annoying. Sonic Superstars also have different kind of progression. For one, you have single acts, which are usually just one big long zone, which they're not usually that long. They can average around 4 to 6 minutes, which I'm okay with. That's not a bad thing. But then there's also character acts, which are based around the character's abilities. Most of these okay. I thought the Tails and Knuckles ones were actually really good, but the Sonic and Amy ones felt not as special, maybe because their abilities are kind of basic. I like playing as Amy because of her double jump. That's honestly a neat move, but Sonic's felt kind of basic, like you could play as literally any other character in the game with this zone. It's not as special as you think. Then there's the new Fruit Acts. Throughout the game, you will collect fruits to access these Fruit Acts, which allow you to collect a bunch of rings in order to rack up a decent amount of medals. And what are medals used for? Well, the online battle mode, of course. Sonic Superstars adds an online battle mode where you can go and make your own custom medal fighter with the medals you collect. Isn't that the best customization in the world, especially with how expensive some of these items are? God damn, just making a Metal Sonic will make you break the bank. But I'm sure you can make something neat, and Metal Sonic isn't the only already existing Metal character here. We have Metal Sonic, Metal Tails, Metal Knuckles, and Metal Amy. There's also a Metal Knights you can unlock by getting a perfect bonus in one of the Sonic 1 bonus stages, and a brand new Metal Trip as well. These are all pretty great. Oh yeah, the bonus stages. I didn't really mention them because they're just the Sonic 1 special stages. They're fine. The Sonic 1 special stages, you get the point. The actual battle mode is kinda whatever though, I'll admit. Let's start up a match real quick so I can show you, and wow, this is taking a while, huh? I'm gonna go make a sandwich or something. I'll be right back. It's still going? Jesus Christ. Okay, it's finally done, and wait, what the fuck? Okay, so the battle mode has an online and local mode you can play, but the local mode doesn't give you any player rankings or medals. But the online mode essentially makes you play the local mode, but you have to still sit there and wait your time to get any of the rewards because no one is playing the game. Like, no one is playing this game, like, not at all. The actual games you have to play are kind of alright though. They consist of 4 games, a race where you race against your opponents and get to the goal of a level, Zap Scrap, where you shoot as many enemies on the screen and avoid getting hit to obtain points, Star Snatcher, where you collect as many stars to obtain points and avoid damage so you don't lose stars, and Survival, where you try to stay on the platform while being shot at for as long as possible while everyone else falls. The last remaining survivor, of course, wins. All these modes are pretty neat. I wish there were more modes since there's only 3 rounds out of 4 games, but overall, I had a decent time playing against these bots, but I think it could be cooler with maybe a more competitive aspect and, you know, a reason to actually play the battle mode. Sure, you can make rooms for friends to join if you want to have fun, but this mode only really rewards medals for the very overpriced in-game shop, and the mode is not gonna last long with no reason to actually even play it in-game. Another mode in the game is Trip Story, where you go through a hardened versions of all the levels with a plethora of enemies and hazards to where Trip uses her ability to climb walls and traverse stages. It's a pretty fun mode. It can feel a little cheap and annoying at times, but I've always liked these insanely difficult modes in Sonic games, and the worst part of this mode is the bosses though. The bosses have had their health extended, making them go on. And the final boss fight of this story is the most pain I have gone through in a Sonic game. Oh wait a minute, there's a last story. So yeah, after beating Shrimp's story and having all the Chaos Emeralds, the last story unlocks where you defeat the Black Dragon final boss, and I won't lie, this fucking sucks. The boss itself isn't that hard and it's quite easy, but the rings in the fight is so few and far between, and all the attacks are so time consuming that it's borderline unfair. It is damn near impossible to stockpile rings, and it is just annoying as hell. For example, sometimes the other characters will swoop in and give you rings. Hell, if you don't get hit for 1 minute, Amy and Shrimp on a giant flicky will give you about 30 rings, which is really helpful, but you have to not get hit for a minute, so good luck. But sometimes the games will switch perspectives so you can actually attack the boss, but sometimes the characters spawn when you switch perspective, leading you to not get rings, leading you to die. It feels like no one thought through this boss at all, and it is just flabbergasting me how this is so fucking bad. Like, this boss is about like 8-10 minutes, even if you're good, maybe 7. It still takes fucking forever because of the moves, the characters not giving you rings at the proper time, and on top of that, the annoying as hell perspective switch where the characters will spawn, but you can't get any damn rings. This is the worst boss in any Sonic game. Like, I'm not even joking. For this recording, I didn't even beat the fucking boss. I got so pissed. I have an hour of footage of me not beating this boss. That sounds kind of like me being like shitty at the game, but I swear to God, it is not just me. This boss is just bad. The entire game though as a package is pretty damn decent. The main story and trip story is where the real meat of the gameplay is, with great controls and some pretty fun level design. The issue sadly comes for the new stuff, and that's just so underwhelming. The emerald powers are whatever, the multiplayer is a fucking afterthought, the battle mode was dead on arrival, the new stuff in this game has no staying power, and honestly, I can't even see this stuff sticking in future Sonic games. And honestly, that's what people really wanted to see, especially since Sonic Superstars is a $60 2D classic Sonic game, which is just not worth the money if you ask me. I already think 2D games should never be $60 unless they have an insane amount of content or they're like fucking Spider-Man 2, but Superstars is unnecessary. The new content besides Trip is forgettable, and if it's forgettable, why even include it in the first place? Sonic Mania as a game as $20 works. It's a 3-hour game with very little additional content, but Superstars is also like that. But instead, the additional content is all just whatever. As a traditional classic Sonic game alongside the other greats, sure, it's a good, fun game, and I definitely say you should get it at a discount. $40 isn't a bad price for this game if you ask me. Mania was $20 and I'm sure those 3D graphics aren't fucking cheap, so 40, perfect middle ground, but don't pay 60. Or if you're like me, don't pay 70. That art book ain't that nice, and it's gonna be on YouTube like next week, dude. Just don't buy it. Moving on to presentation though, starting with visuals, this game looks pretty damn good. I love the environments and how they look in this game. All the levels are just fucking gorgeous. The character models look great too. I've never had a problem with how classic Sonic looks in 3D, unlike everybody else. And the animations here look great. Amazing use of smear frames. Is that what this is? Whatever, it looks great. I love it. I love the character animations. The environments look great. This game looks so damn good. I think it could be so much better if they weren't tied to having to make a game for the fucking Switch. Hell, if you've seen the Switch port, I mean, that's not even a Switch port, that's the PS2. Yeah, it looks real bad, but hey, this is 60 FPS, am I right? That's fucking hilarious. The soundtrack for this game though is sadly not entirely great. Jun's annoyed at the soundtrack for this game, and it's just not his style. Genesis sounding music is not where he excels, sadly, but the tracks not headed by him are actually pretty good. Bridge Island, Speed, Jungle, Pinball Carnival, Lagoon City, Sand Sanctuary, Cyberstation, and its boss, Egg Fortress, they all have great themes. So, the good, thankfully, kind of outweighs the bad in my opinion, but the bad? Shit, that's really fucking bad. Look, June, I love you, but Sonic 4's soundtrack is probably the worst soundtrack in this franchise, and all the bad music from this game is pretty much on par with that shit. So, look, mad respect to him as a person, but just never let him touch a classic Sonic game again, unless he's doing guitar. Like, the Egg Fortress theme isn't bad because of the guitar. It's actually saved by the fucking guitar. All of the T-Lopes tracks are great. All of the Rentaro Samoa tracks, great. Even the fucking Torina tracks, who's only worked on one Sonic game, fucking Team Sonic Racing, has killer music. But every track that June clearly had a lead on just sounds terrible. Well, you can tell the soundtrack was originally gonna be 100% June, and then someone at Sega was probably like, June, let's see that new Sonic Superstars soundtrack. Okay, it's, here you go. And then they heard that shit and thought, someone hit up T-Lopes. I'm sorry, T-Lopes can't do the whole soundtrack before just someone fucking hit up anyone's T-Lopes, that Rentaro guy. He just did the Frontier soundtrack. Hit him up, fucking Torina. Anyone, just get someone to fix this shit. And they did what they could. I'll be real. All the other artists on this game did a great job, but June, stick to guitar, man. Overall, Sonic Superstars is a good classic Sonic game, but it's sadly nothing special. Sonic Mania had the advantage of being the first real classic Sonic game since Sonic 3 and Knuckles, making it feel fresh despite just being a greatest hits album with some new tracks here and there. But Superstars, in a post-Mania world where we have a 2D Sonic gameplay and an arguably better package, Sonic Superstars just feels like another classic Sonic game with nothing special about it. And its new stuff it does add is kinda superfluous. Leaving all that's left is a good classic Sonic game and nothing more. A game I definitely put above Sonic 1, CD, and Knuckles, but nowhere near the greats like Sonic 2, Sonic 3, or Mania. But that's okay. I know everyone had these expectations that it was gonna be better or just as good as Mania, or truly change the classic Sonic wheel, but even if it's not special, it's still another good classic Sonic game, and for me, that's kinda more than enough. Bye. Fuck you.